for you guys. So don't worry about like scrambling to take down notes. It's labs plural, and it's .io. So Jigsaw Labs .io. Oh, you guys don't have internet connection.
I don't have internet connection.
Oh, okay. Oh, the letter O.
I don't know what the password is for the Wi-Fi.
So you can go to Jigsaw Labs .io. You know you're not connected. So yeah, maybe you can just don't go there quite yet.
I'm sorry, which is the Wi-Fi?
So the Wi-Fi, let me see. How did you get connected?
Where I work, yeah.
Okay.
So it's MicroOffice 5. You know, it's having the password automatically. I forget what it is.
Okay, so
Give me
we'll
one
find
second, I'll get it.
we'll find out the password in a second. For right now, you guys can just listen. If you can come around this side, then you can just see some of this stuff. Oh yeah, just come by. Oh, the only thing is, ideally.
Micro, then capital O for office, then
Uh-huh.
exclamation mark.
Oh, for the password. Oh, cool. So you can. So it's MicroOffice 5.
So Micro Office 5, and then the password is Micro Office with a capital M and a capital O, and then exclamation mark.
Okay. So MicroOffice 5, and then it's capital M. It's MicroOffice for the password, capital M, capital O, and then an exclamation mark.
No.
I'm sorry.
So it's MicroOffice 5,
Yes.
and it's capital M, capital O, and then an exclamation point.
Just capitalize N and R.
Oh.
N and O.
Yeah.
And are they one word?
It's one word.
Next Sorry, it's double, the two O's capitalized?
No, just the
Just
O
one O.
on office.
Yeah, so the first letter M
Oh, okay.
is capitalized, and then the first letter of the second word, office, is capitalized. All right. So even if you're not able to get online, as long as you can kind of like hear me, you're fine. So this is kind of this slide. If you go to jigsawlabs.io/about, you can kind of see this chart, right? So what this is a chart of the amount of data that's online. All right. So what you can see is that this is something called a zettabyte. It's not really important what that is. What is important is that in 2016 there was 18 zettabytes of digital information. That's in 2016. In 2018, you got up to 33. Okay. So in other words, the world's data, the world's digital data, doubled in just 2 years. Okay. And then 3 years from now, in 2022, that number is expected to go to 80 zettabytes. All right. So just from 2 years ago, it was 18, to now 3 years from now, it's going to be 80. Okay. So even though people have been talking about the digital age and information age for a long time, the data really is starting to take off just in the past couple of years. So what that means for companies is that companies are really paid to harness this information. They're sitting on top of data, right? Like I'm sure Coalition, has people that come to their events. They have people that visit their website or sign up on a different listserv. They have their members, right? And being able to figure out, okay, what makes somebody interested or turn somebody into actually becoming a member of Coalition. What are other members that we should find out similarly? What type of space do they buy, right? All this information, we can kind of guess about this information, but as companies get larger, using data allows you to make more informed decisions. So what companies are doing is they sit on all this data, and now what they don't have is they don't have people to harness this data, right? And if you guys work in a startup or work in a tech company at all, like, you probably feel that. So what this means is, in terms of data scientists, from 2016 to 2017, the increase in job postings went from was 17%, so 17% in that year, and then that number basically doubled the next year. So 17 to 18, it was 31%, right? So you can see like this profession is taking off. One other thing is just like, okay, what's the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist? You can see what I wrote, about $60,000 in salary. So, data scientists get paid an average of $128,000. In New York, it's $146,000. And data analysts are $68,000. So there's a big difference. So then it's like, okay, well, what's the difference in terms of like skill set of a data scientist versus a data analyst? And that's Python, right? So the main thing is Python. You can see here it says, if you look at the listings for data scientists, 60% of those listings ask for Python. If you're a data scientist, only 6% ask for Python if you're a data analyst. The other skill is statistics. So that's 80% of statistics if you're a data scientist. Data analyst is 30%. So, and I can guarantee you that the statistics required for a scientist is a lot more. So, like these are kind of show you a bit about like where the world is going. One last chart this is like my, let's see if I have it. Okay, so this is like my call your friend who's a data analyst chart. This is the salary of a data analyst, and this is the salary trend of a data scientist, right? So you can see that, unfortunately, the data analyst salary is actually decreasing from an average of around 75,000 to here it's down to that 60,000 number, whereas the data scientist salary is going up, right? Great. So those are some reasons for just learning about data science. And now I can tell you a bit about APIs, right? So what are APIs? APIs stand for Application Programming Interface, whatever that means. It's not real important. What is important is that companies give us websites that allow us to give us basically access to their information, right? So I'll give you an example. Twitter actually made a big mistake by giving. Did you have a question? No. Okay. So Twitter made what some strategists consider a huge mistake by giving access to developers of any of their information, right? Meaning, if they would give somebody's network, right, tell you who everybody else was connected to. What this meant for a company like Instagram back in, I don't know when it was, maybe 6-7 years ago, was that when you logged in to Instagram and signed up as a user and logged in and gave your Twitter credentials, they took your whole Twitter graph, right? So if you think about that, what makes something like Twitter valuable, what makes something like Facebook valuable, is really those connections that you've already established, right? Well, they just gave away that information. It's one of the reasons why Instagram was really able to take off. So companies will give away, on purpose, and even if maybe they regret it later, they give away tons of information. And APIs, when they say, application programming interface, well, the application really is just a website that's giving you back this data. All right. If some of you guys are able to log in now to jigsawlabs.io, and I'll help you guys, but I'll just show you. So you click the login button. Let me do it again. So you go to Jigsaw Labs.
No space? Just
No space. .io. So letter O. Press enter. And then the top right, you'll see this button that says login. If you're not able, if you're not able to log in, try to just look off of this screen of somebody next to you.
What's JIGSAW?
Yeah. There you go. JIGSAW LABS.io.
Sorry, JIGSAW.
Labs.
Labs.
.io. Great. And now click on the login button in the top right. And then click on login one more time. All right, and you should see, a screen pop up, and you want to just click on sign up. So it's over to the right, sign up, and then you can just type in your email. an email address, and a password. So I'll do, something random.
This is not meant to be the email password, so this.
No, this is, yeah, exactly. So this is kind of like the equivalent of your login to this website. If if you wanted to, you could click, in sign up, you see it says sign up with Google. If you want to do that, you can do that as well.
GIGSAWLABS.
Yes.
File, and then
That looks good to me.
Did you say you're gonna share with us the slides that you shared?
Yeah,
You
so
wanna talk through
all
before?
this curriculum is online.
Okay.
So it's all right here. So I'm going to log in. And then I'm just going to click on this Introduction to Data Science. All right, so maybe you'll be able to just look off of Diane. And now what we're on is this section that says browsing like a data scientist, all right? And then we can click on, so once you click on browsing like a data scientist, so click on Introduction to Data Science. Great. And now you see browsing like a data scientist to the left. Click on that. And you can see navigating Google Books. Cool. All right. So this is, so what we're going to go to, right, is what's called like the Google Books API. If you like, you can kind of read along, or maybe you can even see some of what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I'm going to volume list Google developers. I'm just typing that into Google. And again, this is all online, so you don't have to follow precisely along. But what you can see, it says try it now. There we go. So I went to volume list Google developers, and then I'm just clicking on this button that says try it now. And what it has, right, it has this is like, it tells me that this is an API. So let's see what this thing actually does. So I'm gonna click maybe on this zoom in button. So I clicked on this, this square right here. And now you see this queue right here, okay? So,
Is this where one's supposed to be?
yeah, you're right there. And now just click on try it now. Awesome. So you see this queue right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click this send button, or this execute button at the very bottom, and then Google, it's okay, like, I'll happen to sign in, but you don't have to. All right. Cool. All right.
Sorry, the execute button is not entered.
So click on this, try it now.
Okay.
Where's the try now, sorry?
So if you go to, so we go to Google volume list, right? And then you see this down here, it says try it now. Right after the try performs a book search, try it now.
This is just on Google, no?
Yeah, just on Google. So Google space volume, awesome, that looks good. Let's click on that. And now let's click on try it now.
Great.
So there you go. That's perfect.
On your Google.
You mean
Google.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I'll change that. All right. So if you're able to look off of somebody else's screen, that's great, by the way. So we'll do try it now, right? And what you see, what I did was I typed in Harry Potter.
just execute is all?
Exactly. And then you're going to have to log in because it requires, I know, it's a little annoying, but it's because Google requires that. But anyway, I'll show you a way to get around that. So if you click on this, this execute button at the bottom, you can see what I get back is here it tells me 200, right? It says application JSON, whatever that means. And then the other thing is that I'm actually getting, it's a little hard to see right here. I'll have a better way to show you, but I get back all these items. Let me do it a better way. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna copy this URL up top here, all right? And this is just to show you guys a little better. And you can see I get back all of this data here, right? All of this data about Harry Potter, okay? So this is us using an API, okay? So here we're using an API, right? So what I said was like, these companies, what they do is they make their data, their internal data, available to us publicly, okay, for developers to use. So this is Google making information that is collected about any books publicly available for us to use, right? And as data scientists, or developers in general, right? It's really great to know how to use these APIs because that's how, you know, we can access, you know, this growing mountain of data that there is. Some of you guys might have heard about something called like growth hacking. So growth hacking is just, okay, like if I'm a startup or something, how do I get a list of all these potential customers? Well, one way to do it, let's say I'm marketing to restaurants, is to go to the New York City Open Data API and find out or get a list of all the restaurants registered in the city, right? And you can do that, yeah.
So what is the difference between searching API by this way and between inspecting the HTML of any website, let's say not normal website?
Right. So APIs are designed for programmers to use. When you inspect the HTML, that's really designed for like normal non-developers to use. It's designed to present you information, right? So every time if I go to like ESPN.com, right, I just see the images, I see all this stuff. Now, Google doesn't, or sorry, ESPN doesn't send us like literal videos or red colors, right? What they send you really is text, right? This is the only way to do this is to send you actually this. This is what they literally send you back, right? Is this all this text? So, you know, what you can do is you can inspect this text because this text has like words in it, and it has, you know, if I'm looking up like player stats, well, it's going to have that text in there somewhere. So that's called scraping a web page. And the difference is that it's a little bit harder to scrape a web page than it is to use an API. Why? Because scraping a web page, this wasn't designed for a developer to use. You're kind of like, you know, you're kind of being a little hackish, right? And doing it. Now you can do, you know, there are some companies that all they do is just scrape web pages, and they're very successful. Yipit is one of them, by the way. So what an API is right? It's the application programming interface. It's literally an interface for developers to use. So what is that interface? The interface is this thing right here. It's the URL. Okay. So it's and you guys feel free to, you know, scoot your chair around or whatever you want.
How did you get there from this?
Great question. How did I get there? So up top here, you see where it says 200. Above there, it has like this curl, and then it says Google APIs /books.
So yeah, how did you get there? I mean, reading from your, just trying to follow the sequence you follow.
Sure. So where do you go to try it now?
Try this.
Oh, you click up here.
Here?
Yeah. Now type in a string.
Any string?
Yeah, type in a book that you like.
Okay.
Right, so I'm gonna type in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, you have to,
This string.
yours is the one.
And now just copy. Yeah. So copy this top, just the top. So now what you want to copy is just copy the top line. Okay? So the top line says HTTPS, Google APIs, books, volumes, and then it has the name of your book. And afterwards it has an ampersand and the API, like says like API key. We actually don't need anything after that first ampersand. So I'm just gonna stop where it says Harry Potter. And I'm gonna press Command C to copy that text. And I'm gonna open a new tab by pressing Command T, and then I'll paste it in there. So this just has all that first line up to the word Harry Potter for me.
And that's what you get.
And that's what you get. So that's awesome. That's great. So let's see. So you want to copy
I'd
not.
rather do this stuff. Is it possible? Should I do this incognito? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's fine. But what you want to do is you don't want to copy that URL. So let me show you. So
Okay. Well.
all right. So scroll up.
Is this a bunch of text?
Scroll up past this. Keep going. Keep scrolling. Okay. Keep scrolling. Okay. Click this. Click this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So now you see this first line.
This.
Yeah. So and not
Just-
all of it, just the first line. So you can copy that. And then we'll modify this a little.
Okay, and then I put that where?
Put that in a new tab in the URL. Press V. Okay, so we don't want all of this. So for instance, right after Moby Dick, we can stop. Just get that. And then the other
And
thing,
do I, the ampersand, you say?
remove the ampersand, and then go to the front of this line. Go back here. And now we don't need that for that first quote either, so let's remove that. Now press enter. Cool. So you got all this
You go sign
information
into Google.
about
Can you
Moby
sign
Dick.
in?
What actually is this?
Okay.
Yeah, so great question. So the question was, the question was like, what actually is this information, right? So I'm going to type in Harry Potter again, and let's find out. Okay. So the first thing it tells me is, okay, here's total items, 1,600. So in other words, what we probably did, what I think, is that this Q means query, right? And it's your query, you're basically performing a Google search, but just on, about books for a Harry Potter. And you're not specifying, right, the author's name or the title or the ISBN, any of that stuff. You're just searching the text Harry Potter. And what it's doing is it's coming back with, responses, like a Google search. So this one, so after it says kind, so it says items, and then it has this bracket here. That bracket, as we'll learn maybe in the second class if you guys show up, is called a list. So it has a list of all the results that it comes back with. So then it says, here's information about each of these results. The first one says Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. And the author is both J.K. Rowling and Newt Scamander, right? And Pottermore Publishing. And then, if we scroll down, there's probably another result. So here's another book, and here's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, right? So this is a way that we could go to the Google Books API and find out information about Harry Potter, or probably, if we look at the API, could find out, every book that Mark Twain ever wrote, right? All that stuff. Yeah.
Technical question. All this are already scraped and cleaned up for you.
Perfect.
In JSON format, so that Python can consume it.
That's exactly right. So everything here, right? Unlike, the question earlier was, why is this different than HTML? Well, the answer is like all of this stuff right here is is very easy to translate to code. It basically is just code that we can then navigate very easily. It has removed all the things about colors and all the things about the images, right? Just to give us the pure data. So then we can use that pure data.
And it's in JSON?
It's called JSON.
Okay.
So when you,
Yeah,
so when you go to, and again, all we're doing is we're just going to a URL. So when you go to a URL, go to a web page, either you're going to get back HTML, right, which your browser knows how to interpret, and if you right click, you can go to view page source. You can just see this is literally what it sends back to you, right? Or it can send back to you this stuff, all right? If you're not a developer, you probably don't want to just see this, right? It's not very great. But if you're a developer, great. This is the pure data version essentially of a website. So what's next is for us to kind of figure out how to navigate APIs, okay? So there's all these APIs that are available online. Let me just show you. If I Google, I'm just going to type in the words GitHub and then awesome APIs, okay? So those 3 words. And what that does is it gives me a list. So a curated list. I like the second one. That's a collective list of free APIs. So I just Googled GitHub, then awesome, then APIs. And if you scroll down here, you can see there are APIs about books, about calendars, about cryptocurrency, about data validation, development, the environment, events, finance, food and drink, geocoding, machine learning, so basically photography. Flickr, right? Any of these types of things, we can get similar types of information. So similar to how, Google gave us information about the books, what year it was published, who the author is, right? All this stuff. If I Google information about images, I can probably find not only a link to the image, right? I can probably say, like, give me images of cats, right? And it will tell me who maybe took the picture of the cat, when that picture was taken, things like that, right? So we can find out all this information online, all right? So what's nice is that, what you might kind of think is like, oh man, so now I just have to learn like 1,000 APIs, which is not true, right? Instead, these APIs, in fact, like the entire internet is organized in a specific way. So that's what I want to show you guys now, is how the internet is organized. So I'm going to ESPN.com, right? And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on NFL, and you can see that when I did that, my URL, it changed from ESPN.com to ESPN.com/NFL, okay? Now I'm gonna go to hockey, right? So I'll go to, actually hockey's so unpopular they don't list it anymore. So I'll go to the NBA. So now you can see my URL switch to espn.com/NBA, all right? Let's do another thing. So I'm gonna click on Teams. So when I click on Teams, the URL went to espn.com/NBA/Teams. Yeah, did you have a question?
No, I'm just
Okay.
you prelude to something else.
What's that?
You prelude, you're preparing us
Yeah,
for something
yeah,
else.
exactly.
Somewhere.
Right. So now this, if we want to find a list of all the NFL teams, where would I probably go to? ESPN.com/NFL, perfect, /teams. Okay. So this is not an accident, right? Like the internet is organized this way. If I want to go, I'm going to go to Stack Overflow. This is like a question and answer site. Actually, I have to log into it. I think I'm already logged in. But you know, if I go there and I want to like look at users, I would just go to stackoverflow.com/users, right? And that'll give me a list of people that like post questions or answers. Here we go. I go to users, right? I'm going to stackoverflow.com/users. All right, so it's organized in terms of these categories, and these categories are called resources. All right, so this was created. This pattern of kind of putting our information into folders based on that URL did not exist until until I think probably mid 1990s. It was created by Roy Fielding in his PhD paper, and now everybody does this. Okay, by choice. They don't like developers don't have to do this, but it works really well. And there's two different types of things we can ask for online. Either we can ask for the collection. Show me all of the users, right? Gordon Linoff, Jazriel, whatever, right? Show me all the teams, NFL teams, and down here are all the NFL teams. So we can ask for the collection, or we can ask for a specific item. So just tell me the Buffalo Bills, okay? So let's see the pattern when I ask for a specific item. It's NFL, team, right? And then this if it was purely in like the pattern that Roy Fielding suggested, it would be NFL/teams/Buffalo Bills. So it would be the same resource name followed by then an identifier of that specific item. Okay. Same thing, right, with users. This one's done a little bit better. If I do Gordon Linoff and I click on him, right, it goes to users, and then we see this is the ID. It says 1144035, right? That's the ID of that user. So why do you think this might be important in terms of APIs? Well, let's think about this, right?
Because
Well,
that would be the vocabulary being used to identify. So you want to find out if you want a particular person's name, they're identified not by name but by number. You need to find out what the number is.
That's right, right? So what we could do maybe, like if I wanted to use an API, is say first give me a list of all the users, right? So I'd probably do what's called the root URL. So maybe I do stackoverflow.com/users, which would give me a list of that collection, right? All the users. And then I would say, once I got that list, maybe I select the third one and say, okay, that guy has an ID of whatever. So I would do /users/that ID, right? And that would give me information about that specific user. Same thing with ESPN.com, right? So this is all part of just the standard, the URL. What we've seen so far is that we can break up the URL into two different things. One is kind of what's called the root URL. So that's stackoverflow.com, ESPN.com. All of that is called the root URL. That's your website. Then the next thing you think about is what are the folders? Okay. So you think of the resource. All right. So it would be /NFL/teams. Right. That's the NFL teams resource. /users, stackoverflow.com/users. That's the user's resource. And then the next thing we saw was that we can either get a collection, which would be just /users, or we could get, a member of that collection, which would be /users/user ID. All right. There's one last thing to learn about, like the structure of how the web is organized, and that's searching. Okay. So I'm going to go to ESPN.com, and I'm going to click on this search thing. And then I'm going to search for a player I used to like a lot, named Claude Giroux.
Sorry, so is this now different than the way it's organized, or this is a different way of getting to that same information?
also the way it's organized, but it's not just organized. Say I search for Claude Giroux, ESPN doesn't know what category Claude Giroux is. Is that a team? Is that a player? Right? So instead what we do is we go to a different resource called /search/results, right? Or sometimes just /search, okay?
So
And
you have that the other way, you have to go for root, like out, sort of like a funnel, right? From and the point is that you have to know though a lot to get to that person, and this is the way of going it.
So
It's just more direct.
that's a good way to think about it. So when you say root URL, it means like root like a root of a tree, right? So it's the root of a tree, and then the branch would be, you know, NFL. Here the branch is search, okay? Okay, so that's the resource. So now what we could do, let's say we said like, you know, it was back to teams, but it was teams that were like formed in the last 10 years or something like that. Here we're saying search results, but search results such that, you know, we can search, have the text Claude Giroux in them, okay? So what you can see happens is we have this question mark, right? It says search results, question mark, Q equals Claude Giroux, okay? So every time you see the question mark, that's the beginning of what's called a query parameter. It's essentially like a form, okay? So it's like I'm looking for teams, but teams such that this form field matches this value, okay? So here that's this query, Q, matches, equals, Claude space Giroux. Okay?
So where is that written there? That's in your.
So this, I just went to.
It's in your URL.
Yeah, it's in the URL, exactly.
But mine says Claude percentage 20.
Yes, that's true, because URLs don't handle spaces very well, so they'll replace the space with a percentage 20. But that's just a space in the language.
It's just a space, right?
That's a space, exactly.
So it means nothing.
It means nothing, right? And when you search for an API, you can just provide the space and it will translate it to the percentage 20 for you.
So that whole thing, everything after Q equals?
Once you see the question mark, the rest is called query parameter. So the query parameter is a key value pair. So it has the Q, which is like the key. Like this just happens to be that key. They could have called it anything, right? But they called it Q, which means just query. And then the Q equals a specific value. So give me all the results where that match this value of Claude Giroux. If you go to the Google Books API, just to show you another query parameter, we're using it here, right? Books/v1 version 1 of the API. Then we have volumes, which is really just like book volumes, and then we have the other question mark, right? Then we have a question mark, which begins our query parameters. So it's query parameter, so it's question mark Q equals Harry percentage 20 Potter. Okay, so that's another query parameter that we're using. If you ever want to use more than one query parameter, like let's say you say, look for Harry Potter books that were after the year 2000, you'd separate, you can add another query parameter just by doing an ampersand. So that's what that ampersand is we saw before. It's and then another key value pair. So I don't know if this exists in the API, but it could be something like year equals 2017 or whatever.
You could do like ampersand 1980.
Exactly. It would be year equals or some key equals, right?
Yeah.
So you always want to think about it as I'm filling out a form field, right? So you have to say what's the label of the form and then what's the value you're putting into that form.
So if you, example, wanted to find, how could you say that from the very beginning? How you'd structure? I mean, you're suggesting, here you use search and search told you what you should
Yeah,
create,
so
and it shows you the syntax. What would be the syntax if a person wanted to, for example, look for all Harry Potter books written after?
Yeah, let's find out. Okay, so
2002 or something.
Great. So what we have to do, right, to do that is we have to read the document. We have to look at the documentation, right? And the way I generally do that is I look for examples in the documentation. So if you went to that original thing of Google Books, right? You can see down here it says parameters. Okay, so it says parameters, and then here are the required parameters. The only required parameters that Q equals, and then the optional parameters is download. So how can we download this book? So EPUB, right, is a value you can see that we could do, or we could do, let's do free books. All right, so Google ebook with full volume text visibility. So that says the optional parameter is filter, and then here are acceptable values, right? Ebooks, free books, full, paid ebooks, partial, able to see parts of the text. So let's look for Harry Potter books, right, that give me partial, public, able to see parts of the text. All right? So let's think about how we would do that. So what I'll do is, here I'm just going to copy this part of the URL again. It's googleapis.com. That's my root URL, right? googleapis.com/books v1 volumes, right? That's my resource name, right? Books version 1 of the API volumes, and then we see the question mark. Then we have what Google told me was my required query parameter, which was the Q equals. Okay, so I'm going to do Harry Potter. And I like to just like press enter just to make sure I'm doing things the right way, and then build off of that. And then it said after there, what do we have to do? Okay, we wanted to do the filter. So this would be filter, and I want to look for just partial. Okay, so how do I do that? Filter partial. Filter equals partial. What else? So I just exactly right. So I need the. Yeah, so I need the ampersand, right, to separate, and then I'm going to do, in order to say I'm about to do a new query parameter, and then I need filter equals partial. Okay? And we can see that my response changed. Now the first item is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, right? It's a further filtered out information. I'm going to pause for questions because that's everything you need to know about APIs. We're going to talk about how to do this in Python in a little bit, but in terms of like how an API works, maybe there's one more piece of information.
Can you start again? Can you? Would it anybody? I don't want to control.
No, we can.
I didn't understand.
Okay, so let's review. So what's an API? Just in like plain English, to a 6-year-old, how do we say what's an API?
Way to access information.
Perfect, right? Like it's a way for us to give information, you know, but information basically for developers, right? Right? It's just the data form of that information. Okay? And we say application programming interface, right? So it's for programming, for people that can program. The interface, in other words, how we kind of access that information, the interface to that information is what? Like how have we been able to get this information?
Through the API.
Through the API, but specifically like through the URL, right? Like through like typing in different values for the URL. So when people say interface, they just mean like, all right, like different text for the URL, all right? And the format of that URL always follows a pattern, right? So the first thing that we see, the first part of that URL is what? Let's think about like it with ESPN, right?
So it's the root.
The root URL, perfect. So www.espn.com. So that's the root URL. Then the next thing that we wanted to find out is we want to kind of like get folders of this information. So if I want to get, you know, all the NFL teams, right, it's /NFL/teams. We call that, anyone remember the name we call that? It's called a resource. Okay? So you can think about like the web or any website really being organized into these resources. So Facebook, maybe you have like your posts, right? Like things you post on your wall or whatever. So that would be like facebook.com probably /user/posts, okay? And then we could say when we're kind of asking questions of this resource, there's two different types of questions we can ask of a resource. It's, you guys remember any of this?
Query.
Okay, so we have a query, but if I'm going to ask information about teams, either we can ask for all the teams, that's /teams, or we can ask for a specific team, okay? /team / the Sixers, /team/Buffalo Bills, okay? Same thing with users, right? StackOverflow.com, root URL, /users, resource, / my user ID, if I want a specific user. So for resources, we can either, think about these folders and we can kind of ask two different questions of them. Give me the collection, right? Give me all of them, or just give me one of them. Cool? Then we said, okay, well, what if we don't know the specific person? So we want to say, like, give me all of them, but not really all of them. We want to filter down some of them, okay? So for instance, then we want to use something called a what?
Ampersand.
Okay, so ampersand is part of a query parameter, all right? So parameters, right? So these are ways that we're going to filter background information further. Same way we would in like a search or whenever you guys like filter information with like checkboxes on a website or whatever. And we can think of these as really like key values of a form, right? Like of like here's my form field and then here's the data I'm going to put into that. So for example, so to start a query parameter, we have the question mark. So we have like for instance /teams and then find me teams that are like since 1990. So I'm going to start that with a question mark and then my key value pair. So question mark year equals, right? Or year, sometimes it would be like year greater than, right? Or whatever. But year equals, 1990. And then if we want like another filter, we would do that with an ampersand. So year equals 1990, where the state is Pennsylvania, right?
So ampersand is and, what about or? I want two states, how do you do that?
Some APIs allow you to do that. Like for instance, you basically provide that as a query parameter as well. You say like value is or something like that. But generally, most APIs will just handle and. There are some that you look at the documentation, they just show you how to use or.
Sure, I missed that part here. So how do we get to that? We have to go to that interface, log in and do that. We cannot do it with our regular web browser to get this, right?
No, we can do that. This is with a regular browser.
So
Yeah.
we can all do that.
We can do that with a regular browser. Sometimes, this is called a public API. Some APIs, like say like Foursquare's API, or a lot of them are private. All that means is that you just have to tell them your email address, right? Or tell them, why you're using the API, something like that. So this way, if you're doing something they don't love, they can stop you, right? But all it is all you're doing then is, along with your request for say like information about Harry Potter, you're also gonna say my key equals your password, right? Like the password they give you. So it's just another query parameter you're providing.
So to sum up, all these pages coming from the regular HTML web page, you just modify the URL and get this.
Yes. All of this is a normal web page, right? Normal browser, right? All we're doing is typing in we're typing in a URL. Then instead of sending me back HTML, it's sending me back JSON.
Gotcha.
Right?
So these probably really silly questions, but why would we do it? Like, what use is this? Like, just
Great question, right? So why even like look for this? Okay. And almost everything we do in programming, we can do by hand. Almost everything. Like any website that you have, right? Facebook was literally just originally a book at Harvard of people's faces and their names, okay? So all that stuff you can do by hand. But there's a couple different things we can do. One is, now we can automate a lot of this stuff. So what does that mean? I can get a list of, so you could get a list. So WeWork is not doing so hot right now. You could get a list today of every client of WeWork in email, all of them, right? If you're coalition space, right? So you can gather this list of data, get their email addresses, right? And then combine this with another program that then maybe it would be like 5 lines of code, and then sends each of them an email, right?
What about if I work for like a retailer? Could I, from our website, get everyone who's on our website?
Great question. So there's yes, and the answer is yes. So sometimes even when they don't want you to, like you can get this data in this format. So for instance, Sephora, you can go to Sephora's site and you can get, I know this is one of my students did it, you can get a list of all the products and then a list of every user who commented on, not their email address, but I can get their user ID of every user who commented on a product. So what my student did was they said, okay, if these students like these products, or if these users like these products, they're probably also like these products, right? So she wouldn't be able to like gather thousands of those people by hand and then, see who liked what and match that up. But with code, she can do that in a few seconds, So that's really the benefit, is that you can do this stuff quickly and repeatedly. Once she sets it up one time, it works forever.
That's a few more steps to be able to get to that point, actually.
So next week, what we'll get to is how do you filter this information,
Yeah.
right? And then what I'd love to show you, it's actually not that bad, is you can present this in a chart, right? So maybe we say you have a chart of like the products, and then how many users liked each one of them, right? Something like that. So Like here's an easy thing. Like before I could code, I wrote tons of PowerPoints, like a lot of us do. And a lot of those things you can really just automate that, so that it automatically shows you the chart, and then there's a link to embed the chart, and you're good. Yeah. So that's kind of the benefit of APIs, is being able to get lots of this data, right, and then ask questions to that data. Maybe if I want to see, show me the person who commented the most, right, on this stuff. Show me the people, like who are the top users, who are the top whoever. You can get that data and automatically, show that information. You can an alert, when something changes. So that's the stuff that you can do. That's why this stuff is so powerful. There's so much data that's out there, and you can really lots of times what's called like linking. You can combine that data. So you can say, oh, this user's here, he's also here. So not only do I know that he likes, to buy this product, I also know, that he likes this on Spotify or something else, right? Yeah.
Sorry, my question before had been about, I remember when you were starting to do this, you went back and looked at the specific syntax of something, and now will the syntax vary API to API, and so if you're constructing a certain code or search, you do need to then specify, because the way you spoke about it now, for example, question mark and ampersand, that seemed to be a kind of universal syntax.
Mm-hmm.
When is it universal?
Right. And
when is it particular?
Great question, right? So you're right. There are certain rules that there are certain patterns that are going to be followed throughout, right? So the pattern that's followed throughout is root URL, resource name, query parameter. Okay, so root URL,
resource name, then query
parameter, right? Where query parameter is always going to be question mark followed by the key value pair. Now, what are those keys and what are acceptable values? That you have to find out from the API documentation. So you just Google Books API documentation, right? And then what I love to do is just find an example and copy and paste that example.
Sorry. Can you say all that again? So I understand, it's root URL, resource name, query parameter, and you said the query parameter is always going to be the question mark and URL, correct? Well,
question mark followed by the key value pair, meaning that query.
Okay, and then question mark and then key value pair. And you say you find the key value pair in the API?
Yeah, so you'll find exactly what can I pass through by going to the documentation, or by guessing. Last time I'll just guess. And I'm wrong 5 times, but I'm wrong right once, which is enough.
Do you have to have a resource name? Like I can't go espn.com/q equals.
That generally won't work, because that normally won't work. But people can choose to organize their website however they want, right? These are just patterns.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
When you talk about question mark key pairs, what do you mean? Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. So it's like so when you say the key value pair, right? It could be the year, right? The year the book was published equals 1990, right? That's the key is the year. The value is 1990.
Gotcha. That's a Python dictionary concept.
Yeah, that's like a dictionary in Python, which we have not talked about, but it's that pattern often shows up.
So question mark 1990 would be a key value pair?
No, it'd be more like question mark year equals.
Year.
Okay.
You always have your key, you always have there together, otherwise it would not be meaningful.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Perfect. Okay. How much time do we have? Let's see. Oh, we have 3 minutes. You guys want to learn how to code? Okay, let's learn how to code. If you're able to go to the website, the Jigsaw Labs, and if you're not, I'll help you log in. Let's do. You see where it says just a bit of Python. Scroll. It says understanding APIs. Then the next section is APIs with Python, and then at the very top it says just a bit of Python. And then you want to click on the tab Time to Code. What this is doing, when you click on Time to Code, it probably will look blank at first. That's okay. What it's doing is it's initializing a new computer for you in the cloud, and then it's going to connect you to that computer, so that this is automatically set up so that you can code in Python. So when you see the blue bar coming up, you know that things are working out well. there's three things, 3 bits of Python to learn before using an API in Python. Okay, so that's like numbers, text, and something called a variable, whatever that means. But before getting to that, I just want to tell you a little bit about like what this thing is right now. You see, it's not like as pretty as the rest of the website. The reason why is because this is a coding environment, okay, that I've like embedded into this webpage. So this coding environment is called a Jupyter Notebook. And this is how data scientists code all the time, is inside of a Jupyter Notebook. There's like, you can, in a Jupyter Notebook, yeah.
Sorry, I can go back to you, but would you be able to send all of this information like PowerPoint or link?
Yeah, everything is, like every word I'm speaking is already pre-typed to you.
Oh, okay, so how do we get that?
Just go to jigsawlabs.io.
There's no ID, no nothing?
You just provide like an email address and you're good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And sorry, we'll want to go where to get all, we can go to browsing like data scientists or
Yeah.
just a bit of
So
Python,
that,
all
yeah,
that stuff.
exactly. So you can just read through that, and that covers everything that I talked about. All right. So yeah.
Next week, sorry. Next week will be about the same time.
Yeah. 12:30. 12:30 to 1:30.
So always noon time, not like after 5, after 6.
Well, in a few weeks we'll do after 6.
Yeah, it might be easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. So okay. So there's just 3 things we need to know, right? Text, integers, variables, whatever that is. Before doing that, I just want to tell you a little bit about this environment. So this environment is called a Jupyter Notebook. It's made so the data scientists will be like, oh, I have to do this, and then they actually do it. They actually write the code. So what you can do is, if you want to execute one of these code cells, right? I can write like 1 plus 1. So type in 1 plus 1, and then you press Shift and Enter at the same time. You can hold down Shift and press Return. You guys see the number 2? We coded, guys. That's great. You click on the next button, and then this will take a second to start up. So what that's doing is creating a new environment for you. So it'll just take a minute. All right. So we just wrote some Python, all right? And we just learned one of the 3 things we need to learn about Python, right? We said we need to learn about integers. So these are integers, okay? They're just numbers. We can do whatever you think that you can do with them, right? 1 times 5 tells you the number 5. Beautiful. The next thing you need to do is text. So if you just try to write text, like I'm just going to write out Harry Potter, and then press Shift Enter again, we see the Python don't like that, okay? So we cannot do that. What you need to do is you need to surround your text with quotation marks. So do a beginning quote and an ending quote. And then press Shift Enter. Right? Cool. And if you don't see anything saying there's an error, you're good. All right, so that's a string, right? Strings is just means text, and you just surround it with quotation marks. Double quotes or single quotes are fine. For now, just use double quotes. And then the last thing to learn about is something called a variable. A variable, does anyone have an idea what this thing means? A variable? Yeah.
Yeah, for example, I have to say X, I can't give it a value, just make an equal sign, then put whatever number or a word or whatever, multiplication to this X.
Exactly, right? So here's the thing, we have this problem with programming, which is that we write this code and then we forget what the heck it means, So even if I write the number like 2, it's like, what does that number represent? Is like how much money I make? Is it like how many people show up for something? Like what does these numbers actually represent, right? So 30, maybe like 30 is like the payday, who knows? So I want to assign this thing like some sort of meaning. I want to give it a name. So the way I do that is now all of a sudden, right? Like I just write plain text, no quotation marks or anything, and as long as I begin with a letter, I cannot begin with numbers. So I just type in payday. And our variables cannot have any spaces in them, right? So just write a word, right? No spaces, and then do that word equals some sort of data. So either a string or an integer.
Spaces between the equals and the 30.
That's true. Yes, space between. So it's a variable name, space, equals sign, space, value. And if you press Shift Enter, you won't see anything at the bottom. Okay? So it looks like nothing happened. What you just did is you basically just placed the number 30 into this, like, I like to think of it as like a mailbox. We basically just put the number 30 into this mailbox called payday. If I want to get that number out, right, I just type in the name of the variable again and press Shift Enter. So I just retype payday, and press Shift Enter, and it returns to me that number 30. Okay?
Is there a space between?
No, you're good. Press Shift Enter. Just hold down Shift first and then press Enter. There you go. And now type in payday again. Hold down Shift, press Enter. Cool. Great. All right. So we are on our way. Great, well, guys. So we're ready to use APIs with Python. Have fun. Here we go. If you click on the next one, it says calling APIs with Python. Look at us.
Sorry, where are you now?
So the next, go back to Jigsaw Labs. Just click on the next one.
We're calling APIs
With Python, yeah. All right. So here's what we do. Remember, let's just review what we do with APIs. APIs, we go to some other web page, right? And we get back data. When we go to that web page, this is called like making a web request. And every time you can do two things on the web. Either you can get back information, or you can like actually change somebody else's website. How do you change somebody else's website? It's whenever you fill out a form. If you create a new user, right, you're changing their database. They're now storing information about you. If you're getting a list of users, well, you're not changing anything on their website, right? You're just asking questions. So whenever you get information, that's called a GET request. This is all written down. Whenever you change information, that's called a POST request. All right?
I'm sorry, what was the other one?
Post.
Post?
Post request. So post request is whenever you fill out a form and like press submit and like create a new user. Okay. So we want to make a web request to get back information, and we obviously are going to have to provide this URL. So to make a request, we type in import space requests. The reason why is because in Python, we don't have the ability to hit APIs just out of the box. We need to use a library. Right? It's not part of the standard library, but we can kind of like use this non-standard library called the request library. So you do import requests, and then you press Shift Enter. Now what you've just done is you've loaded up the code necessary to hit APIs. To access that code, you type in the word requests again. Okay? So you requests again, and then you press dot. And now after dot, I like to just press a tab at the end of that dot. Oops, let's see. I'm just kidding. There we go. And you can, if you look at my screen, you can kind of see like I have all this stuff that I have options of. What I want is I want this get, right? Because we're making a get request as opposed to a post request.
I got an error when I put in import. Oops, we got an
Import
error.
request, that looks good.
We got an error.
Oh, that's just my text, but you didn't actually get an error.
Oh,
So now you just type in the word request. So if you do
Here?
Shift Enter here, just see if
Just
that
Shift
worked.
Enter?
Yeah. Sorry, hold down Shift and then press Enter. There you go, that worked. Okay, so now we're going to do requests.get, and I'm going to copy over. Let's see, I think I probably have it. If you scroll down, you can see it's already there for you. But what I'm going to copy over is the URL, the exact URL for my Google Books API, and that should be, right, a string. So
sorry.
the same URL that we type in Google Books.
So we can just hit.
Or you could just hit Shift Enter. That's fine. Just see that it gets back response quote 200. If you get a response of 200, that's great. 200 means everything's okay. This is good. 400 means something went wrong. So what you just did, right, if you do response 200, is you just had Python go across the internet, get information from the Google Books API, and bring it back to your code. Now, how do you unpack this information? Like once it got that, made that request, you're kind of, it's like you can't hold, it's hard to hold on to it. How we store stuff is with that variable again. So I'm going to store, right, this request in a variable called response. So I'm going to do response equals. So I'm just going to put response equals in front of this. So I'm going to do response equals request.get, right, my URL name. And remember, when we assign a variable, we don't see anything at the bottom. If we want to like see it, we have to retype it, right? We want to have to see, so I'm going to retype response, and it shows me response was 200. All good. The next thing I'm going to do now is do .json. So .json, beginning parentheses, closing parentheses.
What about that step, the status quo?
Oh, that's great. Like that's another. So there are different questions we can answer. Ask for this response. Status code is one of them. Give me the JSON back, right? Is another one.
Yeah.
Right. So both valid questions. So just do response.json, and you know, and then I'm just going to press Shift Enter. But I'll show you. Beginning parentheses, ending parentheses.
Oh, here?
No, at the end of JSON.
Oh.
How do I get to the regular? Sure. So
And
we
then-
have this request. Now we have this request.get. We want to store this request in a variable called response. So look for that.
So,
I'm not going to go in here.
yeah, I mean, so.
I know, but you can do, this is live code, so you can do
Yeah,
it
yeah.
yourself, right?
So I can take this out and do.
Yeah. Or you can just press Shift Enter and do it. There are not filled out activities right afterwards.
Somebody
Oh, okay. That'll be alright.
So there, it's possible for us to go through this stuff without you?
Yeah.
Okay, it would be
Yeah,
obvious, the
it's-
answers?
Yeah. In
Okay.
fact, I think I put the answers below last time. Yeah. Or you can just look at this.
Well, I have done response.json up here, getting a 2154 response, and then response.json here saying 3447.
Well, that's because, so this was done at a different time, so maybe they recategorized it or something like that.
So basically, we don't know how to do it, you tell us below, is that how it works?
Exactly. And then I you know, kind of give you an activity afterwards to figure that out. All right. So what that is, right? We just used an API using Python. So we just got that data. We obviously don't know how to like ask questions of that data. So that's what the next lesson is like everything back here, everything in here is actually it is either something we've already learned or just one of two things. One's called a list, like a list of items. The other, what that other student talked about, which is a dictionary. There's just more key value pairs. So those are the two data types we're going to learn about next week.
And how I then translate this into something I will search for.
Exactly, right? Like so you get back this list. It's like maybe you just want to find out the year of every book that
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling wrote, right?
Or like if I want to search for something on a different website, do I just go into here and do it?
Yeah, you can do that here.
So you're going to do it in here.
Or another way to do it. This, like I said, this is a coding environment that like all developers use.
Yeah.
So another thing you can do is you can download Anaconda. So just type in Anaconda in Python. This is probably the easiest way to get Python and everything you need installed. And you see where it immediately brings you to free download, and you can click on download. Right? And it's pretty standard. But I can help you out next class.
Sorry, we should do that instead of Jupyter, or is it the same thing?
It's the
This
same
is-
thing.
Okay.
We'll just, you know, this is just purely the notebook. It doesn't have any of the assignments, obviously, or anything like that. So if you want to do some of the assignments are part of that. If you want to like do your own project or you know play around with your own API, you can just Google Anaconda and then Python, and then download this platform. Another thing you can use is Google Colab. This is on the web, so you can Google Google Colab. And for this, it's slightly, I think, harder to. You can try it. It can be slightly harder to set up. Actually,
They're both free?
yeah, they're both free. So you can see this is something similar, right? This is another Jupyter Notebook, same type of pattern. Okay, you might have to download like a browser extension for Google Colab. That's the only thing. All right, I'll let you guys. I know some of you guys are busy, so feel free to head out. I'll also stick around for a few minutes if you have questions. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on